Here we are. We are live. Internet
Hello, hello.
working, power working. We are still
No
standing after
hurricane can
Hurricane Milton.
stop a Democrat and a Republican walk into a bar.
Absolutely. So I am your Democratic host, Dr. Cindy Banyai.
I am your Republican host, Sean Hartman, and we are, of course, safe from the storm. I just got back just a couple of hours ago. I exfiltrated to Broward County. I actually spent past 2 weekends in Broward now at this point with
Wow.
my parents. So we rode it out there and also celebrated Yom, where I guess I don't know if you can call it a celebration, but Yom Kippur, obviously the Jewish
Mhm.
holiday. As a Messianic Jew, I still celebrate Jewish holidays. So I celebrated Yom Kippur with my remaining Jewish family on my father's side, where we fasted and atoned for our sins. It was a great time. I very much enjoyed it, and then I just got back, and thankfully, we did not lose the house. There was no real damage to the house, and we got back a lot quicker than we did when it came to
Mhm.
Ian, especially down here because of LCEC, which I think has to do in part to the city council after Ian saying we may cancel your contract and go somewhere else, which has always been discussed, and I do want to talk about that a little bit more in a bit because the city has often tried to set up their own electric company and take over LCEC's responsibility. But I think LCEC realized that if they didn't get their button gear this time, then they would be losing the contract with Cape Coral. So thankfully, they got their button gear this time. I did hear that there were two substations that were damaged, but it looks like either they made those repairs quickly or they found alternative sources. So thankfully, a lot of people got up and running very, very quickly. I have a friend in the Southwest who got up pretty rapidly. So thankfully, here in Southwest Florida, we have the damage is not necessarily not it's still substantive, but it's not as bad as Sarasota and Tampa, who did get some serious flooding. So definitely reach out to the Red Cross and FEMA if you've been affected by that, if you're watching in those areas, if you're able to watch in those areas, if you have power or internet
Right.
somehow, or maybe you're watching us on mobile data. But how did you fare, Cindy?
Some dedicated folks if they're watching us on mobile. That's great. So I'm across the river in Fort Myers. So we did okay. Luckily, we didn't get as much rain from this. We apparently the hurricane had sucked up the dry air, so that was a big deal because the first outer
Yeah,
band that came through that had all the tornadoes had a ton of rain, and I was very worried because it was flooded like up halfway through
yeah,
my driveway. I was very worried. I was one of the folks who was in the path of one of those hurricane or tornadoes during the hurricane, so that wasn't very fun. Like
yeah.
as we dove into the hallway, so through my neighborhood and then down McGregor. So it's kind of like Jefferson Park,
Okay.
Allen Park, Sunset Park, and Edison Park all had a lot of tornado damage from it. There was some trees and stuff that were down in my neighborhood. I may have had some roof damage from that, but we have to
Yeah.
get it inspected. But otherwise, we did do better. We didn't lose power except for during the tornado. So when the tornado kind of went through, but it came back pretty quickly after that. So
That's
it was a
impressive.
pretty big surprise to be honest.
Yeah.
So but
Totally,
I will
totally
say,
get
just
it.
while we're talking about this, that Big Mouth Media is sponsoring and partnering with a local social welfare agency called Save Our Democracy to do hurricane aid around the state. So we currently have a drive to get goods. So if you do have, by the way, like leftover hurricane stuff, batteries,
Mm.
paper towel, cleaning supplies, gloves, and stuff like that, and you're looking for a place to donate them, we are going to be collecting them through today, probably until tomorrow and the next day as well, at 1400 Colonial Avenue, Suite 61. We have a box in there. And if you click, we put in the comments there on save-our democracy.com. We're running a cash fundraiser there, so that is going to be going to taking those supplies up to the harder hit areas in Charlotte and Sarasota County, as well as looking at some of the tornado hit areas over in Glades and then East Coast Port St. Lucie.
Yes.
And getting those supplies over there. And then if you do know somebody who is looking for additional support, somebody who needs more immediate aid and they haven't been able to access it at this point, something thinking like generator, some type of medicine, things like that, there is an application for direct aid on that website as well. So please, reach out, share that with folks who may be in need, and contribute if you can. So
absolutely, yeah. And there's several other programs I'm sure are doing stuff as well. The other thing is that I wanted to bring up in this is if you see price gouging, definitely reach out to the Attorney General's office as well. That is illegal. And if that's as long as that's reported, we can get it stopped. But we can't get it stopped if no one reports it. So if you do see price gouging or suspect price gouging, definitely reach out both to the Attorney General's office and your local state attorney's office, I would say.
yeah, they had a hotline floating around somewhere for that as well. And you're right that there's a ton of organizations that are doing good stuff. I've seen, World Central Kitchen is on the ground, Red Cross is on the ground, Mercy Chefs are on the ground, Samaritan's Purse is on the ground in a lot of these areas. And as we know from Hurricane Ian, there's a lot of need, right? So, these organizations are doing a lot of stuff and trying to help a lot of people. We were very fortunate. All of us were very fortunate. The state of Florida was fortunate that the bulk of the damage did not pile directly into Tampa because it's a much more densely populated area, because we would have probably had a much higher casualty count and things like that. But the areas that were hard hit, this Hurricane Milton came aground on Siesta Key, and Sarasota is about at the same density as Fort Myers and Cape Coral. So there was a lot of people that were affected by this storm as well. So, but kind of like dodge a bullet in terms of worst case scenario. From what I understand. So there's plenty of places, and those tornadoes that went through really made a big difference, like hurt people a lot. There was a retirement community over on the East Coast of St. Lucie.
19 people died over there. Yes. Yeah. There are a few people that were shocked. And actually I was talking to my grandparents as they were driving us home, as they were driving me home from the bus stop. Cause it was very interesting. They didn't want to evacuate. The seniors at their living community didn't want to evacuate. And both the city and the county tried to get them to evacuate. Both the city and the county sent buses. Like they were doing what props to the city of Fort Myers and their government for trying to get these elderly people out, but no one wanted to go, according to my grandparents. And my mom actually stayed with them to ride out the storm. And thankfully, again, we weren't severely hit in those areas in the Merrill Gardens near Barclay Circle, is where they live. But that was something that I just found very interesting, that you have like a lot of these elderly seniors who are stubborn about this. And some of them were like, if it's my time, it's my time. I'm 80, 90. I mean, heck, if you're in your 80s or 90s, getting swept up, dying by getting swept up in a tornado is kind of a cool way to go. Let's be honest. Like, I'm not trying to make light of these of these people dying. I really am not. I swear to God, it's not my intention. But when you think about it, it's cooler to go out that way than just a normal peaceful and sleep. I mean, the stories you can tell. Like
I suppose
I'm trying to look at the silver lining here.
I think a
lot of seniors think that it's too much of an effort. Why would they do that? They might as well.
Well, because it's tough, it's uncomfortable, and if you have health problems and you have all your stuff around you, you feel more comfortable. And finances are a problem a lot of times for folks on a fixed income, so it becomes a challenge for folks. And unfortunately, we know from research that the most likely people to die in hurricanes are senior citizens, because they make that decision to not evacuate. They may be in a surge zone, and they will perish as a result of that. So that's unfortunately one of the realities of these storms. So it's tough. It's really tough. I do, like you said, applaud the efforts of trying to get folks on a bus and up and out and ease, make it easier for them to evacuate. But sometimes it's not going to happen.
I mean, you can't force someone to do it.
Right.
What are you going to do? Like get the cops and like corral 100 80 to 90-year-old people in walkers and wheelchairs, arrest them because they're not,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so here we are. Let's talk about a little bit about the politics about that. Cause, as I said, as we were coming on, I was interviewed the day or so ahead of the storm by a reporter for the American.
Did I just lose you? I think we just lost you. Okay, Cindy is frozen. All right. Well, or is she frozen on your? I don't know. We
Sort
don't
of.
know. Okay,
Can
are
you
you
hear me?
back? I can hear you now.
I
Yeah,
can hear you now. Yeah.
you froze there for a minute.
Technology, the internet and everything is not quite back on
Okay.
track yet. Not gonna
Well,
not gonna lie.
we'll do a shorter one today, so that way we don't have to keep freezing
Deal
all
with
over
that.
the place. But
Right.
we have a few things
Um,
we do definitely need to talk about, especially with this hurricane happening. But yes, go ahead.
So I was saying, yeah. So I was interviewed about the politics of this for the American Prospect. Actually, I'll drop the link here because it's kind of interesting talking about how it was the storm was going to affect. I was asked about that. So basically, I had said, look, if we get Florida Democrats are saying that Tampa's in play or Florida's in play, but if there's a strike on Tampa, that's going to really, cause a huge problem with Democratic voters. I talked a little bit about the local politics of all of that as well. We did see, so that interview was like leading up to it. And she asked a little bit about the politics of, Kamala Harris calling Ron DeSantis and all that kind of stuff. And for me, especially at that time, like being up to my eyeballs in hurricane prep, I did not have time for any of that nonsense on both sides. I was very upset just to think about that. This is supposed to be the time natural disasters are the time that we're supposed to come together as Americans and help each other and kind of put aside that partisan politics stuff. So I was very disappointed to see all of that. I don't know how that struck you.
Well, first off, I do think that the Republican governors have had positive things to say about this administration coming in, and what they've been doing there. Ron DeSantis has done it before, and we've seen it on both sides. Where when you have a storm, when you have a hurricane, if you have a president and a governor of opposite parties, you got to work together for the good of the people in that state. And we've seen that with Ron DeSantis both times at the hurricane when he worked with Biden as well in the previous hurricane, as well as working this time around. He sang his praises. Kemp sang his praises. Bill Lee sang his praises. They're getting what they need from FEMA. Obviously, there's a lot of, and we talked about this last week about when we're sending funding to Ukraine, if we don't have enough money for these people here, there's two separate pockets of that. But of course, if we could have enough money to send to Ukraine, we should have enough money to send there. And there has been talks about the FEMA funding running out. Now, again, that's up to Congress. And we're going to see Speaker Johnson, has spoken about getting more funding into FEMA. I don't think there's going to be an issue with funding. There might be an issue with where we're going to get the funding and a discussion on that might delay it, which is another conversation that I don't even know where we're going to even go with that. But I honestly do not think after these two hurricanes that you're going to see a lot of pushback from Republicans to get the funding out as quickly as possible, even some of the more conservative ones.
So speaking of that, there was a somewhat bipartisan moment in one of the races here in Florida where sitting Congresswoman and Paulina Luna, who's a Republican, basically is calling on, and it was her district, by the way, that was really significantly damaged. She's in the Tampa area. But she had called on Speaker Johnson to bring Congress back into session to vote specifically on extending FEMA funding, as did her Democratic opponent, Whitney Fox. They were both in Florida politics today, making a call on Speaker Johnson to bring the Congress back into session, because right now the reason that there is no additional funding voting on is because there is a recess in Congress, so everybody can go back to their districts and campaign for the election, which is just a little
few
over 2
weeks
weeks
away.
away.
And that's the other thing that I'm glad you brought up, because I was going to ask that too. Like, how does both of these hurricanes multiple states, how does that affect the election going forward? Are these areas going to be able to conduct election activities? I know there was discussion already also, which I disagree with, but apparently we aren't extending the voter registration deadline.
No.
I'm not 100% certain as to why we're understanding that, so I'm not fully commenting on it.
I could talk a little bit about that.
totally,
So basically, as Hurricane Milton was kind of coming in, the NAACP and the League of Women Voters, and I might not be correct on NAACP, but the ACLU and League of Women Voters, put forward a legal lawsuit essentially saying that, can you extend voter registration, because voter registration for the state of Florida ended on October 7th, which was the Monday ahead of Hurricane Milton coming in on Wednesday, Thursday. That was thrown out. That lawsuit was thrown out by the Florida Supreme Court, I assume. So there was not
in that case, then I can understand that, because if the date was after the hurricane, I would have agreed to extending it. But if it's right before the hurricane, even though we're all rushing, changing a voter registration takes like 5 minutes online. It's not.
So that was the saying, like, people were evacuating. So but what did I just saw as well happen is that in the counties that were most significantly affected by Hurricane Milton, they are making some additional accommodations around vote by mail. So it wasn't specific as to how that was going to go out, but it seems like there was flexibility within the Florida Division of Elections under the Department of State to have to help those folks vote.
That's good to know. I honestly think that when we're dealing with these type of hurricanes, I know you were talking about obviously hitting bluer areas, how that can affect the voter turnout. My concern as a Republican is that in these areas, you're going to have to rely on vote by mail in order to get your vote out. And when you have a lot of people who are not into vote by mail, then that's going to reduce Republican turnout in those areas, which is going to boost it on your end, which does really do put Florida in play. That is
all
my
right.
concern. Yeah, I know you're happy. I am. That is an act of God if there ever was one.
Strategy on y'all's part. But no, all seriousness aside,
turns out trying to convince people not to vote by any means necessary was a bad idea. Who knew? I thought we wanted to win as Republicans. That's just me. But
So one of the things that I was quoted in the article that I posted about was that we sorry, let me plug my thing in here. I lost my train of thought. Is that what we learned in the light of Hurricane Ian is that voter turnout is significantly depressed. We had a lower voter turnout in 2022. That hurricane was a full month and change ahead of.
But at least as I remember it, we had a lot of damage even that month in. When I was even going for early voting and campaigning with people during the early voting period, there was still damage everywhere.
Oh yeah, so Lee County went from over 100 voting precincts to 12. That was it. And then they ran it like it was early voting. So they have the 12 early voting locations, and then that was it, because some of these voting precincts were completely gone. Now, this may be the scenario in Charlotte and Sarasota County, by the way.
Yeah.
So I would be very surprised to see robust turnout in Sarasota and Charlotte counties, and even places like Pinellas and places that were still reeling all the way up the Panhandle from Hurricane Helene as well. Just because
Sarasota and Charlotte counties are not blue counties.
No, they're largely Republican.
That's an area where we're going to see depressed Republican turnout and less votes, which for one almost certainly means that Debbie Murkowski-Powell is going to be a senator. And the real question is does that flip Florida blue for Harris with 30 electoral votes? Because if Florida goes for Harris, it's game over. We don't even need to worry about Pennsylvania. We can win all the other states we need to win that we're talking about. If we lose Florida, we're kaput.
Well, I love that scenario, Sean. So let's go ahead and end today.
Of course, that's where you. Yes, let's end today
It
with
makes me feel
for
a
my
whole lot
fellow
better.
Republicans a dire warning. A dire warning.
I mean, I don't think it's. I think it's going to suppress the turnout somewhat
I
equally,
think
to be
yeah.
honest.
You do too.
Those do
Okay. Well,
happen to
I
be
hope you're right.
Republican heavy counties. um you know, so I don't know, like, what I had basically said to the prospect too was like, look, you know, we already saw during Ian that that people, like, it's not on their radar. There are so many people, they're trying to live, right? Like, they've fled, they're fixing their house, so what it's the people who are truly devoted to voting, you know, you're very you know, active voters, people that vote in every single election, people who are, you know,
People who
really
see it as their
interested.
duty, yeah.
Those people are probably going to make the effort to vote. But the other folks, the people who maybe only vote in presidential years,
Yeah.
your low information voters and stuff like that, they are not going to turn out.
Yeah.
So that strategically would mean things are, you know, because turnout is a big factor for Democrats, right?
Yeah.
That may be a bad sign for Democrats, but you're right that both
Right.
of those counties are very Republican. So who knows? I almost, my gut feeling is it's kind of a wash, and the partisanness of it. But I really just frankly concerned about democracy too. Like, I want to see people participate in the process, and I just know that this is going to make it very difficult for people.
All right. Yeah. No, I agree. Well, we will know that answer in about 3 weeks. Oh my God.
Less
3
than
weeks,
that.
we're finally done. Wait, isn't it 1, 2, 3? It's the 3 Sundays and then the Tuesdays right there. Yep.
So it's
No,
2.5 weeks.
you're right. I'm miscounting. I'm looking. No, wait. No,
It's like,
1, 2. No, it is 3 weeks. I'm counting right because we're on October 13th, so we have 3 weeks.
okay.
Anyway,
Either way,
this is why
it's
you're
coming
the
close.
political science teacher, not the math teacher.
Right. I was just a little estimating, to be honest.
Yeah,
Like, a little bit, a little here.
We're so close. Oh, it's almost over.
It's close. So,
all right, so we will know then. All right, well, this has been a very short Democrat and Republican walk into a bar, so we don't have.
Oh, you don't want to talk about Jack Smith before we go?
Oh, we have to. Oh, what about Jack Smith? Is there something new now? I thought we talked about this last week.
No, well, I guess we did a little bit, but there was just more information, and some of it that was supposed to be redacted. NPR got a hold of.
I have not heard about this. What happened?
There was some information that apparently, in the way that they had redacted the documents in these appendix parts about it that had some information about people, the way that they did it is like on the screen, if you're looking at it, it was blacked out, but if you like copy it and paste it, it would actually paste it.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
No.
So I like one of the reporters at NPR got a hold of it, and so there was a lot of additional information. I was very much wrapped up in the hurricane stuff, but that was something that I had heard.
Oh, I have to read that and talk. Well, first off, I actually, that's a problem when taking away the hilarity of it all and all of our personal opinions on it, right? Ignoring that is very freaking concerning. If you know, if you could just remove the redacted parts by copying and pasting, the whole point of the redaction is to protect the defend their civil rights. Now Donald Trump can sue probably and
I think that
thrown out or
right. And I think that what ended up happening is that they tried, and then the judge said no.
Yeah. No, that's ridiculous. The fact that I get it's probably a human error. I'm sure you'll have conspiracy theories saying no, it's not.
I'm sure it was.
But the point is that there needs to be legal actions, honestly, against Jack Smith and his team on that, because that is a serious violation of privacy and the defendant's civil liberties.
Yeah.
And
so
the liberties of any of the witnesses or other people involved who aren't being charged.
Yeah, so this was, I mean, this is coming out more and more, so we'll have to see how this plays in. I will say just briefly on this, as much as I would love for these, the Jack Smith indictments and the documentation to be a real true October surprise, and to change people's minds, I really don't think it's going to. I think that at this point in time, you have, and I've said this from the very beginning, this is a turnout election. Okay.
Yeah.
People are where they are. People who are in for Trump, they don't care. And there's a lot of, this is political and blah, blah, blah on that. And people who are not voting for Trump, they're already on board. Right. So like this is not going to change anything, I believe, in terms of how people are going to vote. There's only a very,
Yeah.
very, very small portion of undecided voters.
Yeah.
And I'm not even sure
And I
that
feel,
something like this would sway them.
yeah, so for me, from what I've seen from the undecided voters that are out there, the undecided voters are really trying to figure out more whether or not they're going to vote for Harris than for Trump. Almost all of the undecided voters that I've seen in focused groups say that they don't like Trump. They're not going to vote for Trump, but they're undecided on Harris. And so
Right.
for me, undecided voters are not Trump voters. Undecided voters are just not Harris voters. And so they'll either not vote and reduce your total count and therefore
Right.
your margins, which I'm okay with because that's a wash, or they vote for you, which isn't good for us, or they vote for third party, which is, again, removes from some of your margins, but it doesn't go to Trump. But Trump is not. I don't think Trump is going to swing undecided voters. From what I've seen,
Yeah.
undecided voters are pretty much anti-Trump, just not for Kamala Harris just yet.
Yeah, a lot. So yeah, the choice is between Harris or the couch, right? In a lot of circumstances.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is what we're looking at here. So, and it's and really even amongst the electorate, it's a very small vote. It's a very small portion of people. I still think the biggest concerning risk in terms of the election, especially from the Democratic perspective, is how people are looking at Israel and Palestine. That is still the biggest risk here. We did see the, somewhat of an October surprise here with the Iran, kind of joining the fray.
And now they're attacking Lebanon, which has
Yes.
opened up a new front in that war, which
Yes.
has put it in the spotlight. And I've seen conspiracy theorists on the other side too that Bibi Netanyahu is doing it to help Trump, which doesn't, which I don't think is the reason why he's doing it, but it does it. It reminds those pro-Palestine factions in your party that this party is the party just like the Republicans that are going to support Israel. And it opened up to someone like Cornel West or Jill Stein. I mean, the DNC and Kamala Harris are putting out ads attacking Jill Stein now. Jill Stein is a legitimate threat to them because of the war in Israel and Lebanon and Gaza over there.
Yeah, no, and I had friends who have expressed that. So this is not just a pie in the sky kind of things. From the very beginning of this conflict, I was worried about it in terms of this being something that is going to negatively affect voter turnout among young voters, among voters of color, as well as your Muslim Americans. But it's because it's a very difficult situation for those folks, and they do not trust the current administration. And I know you see my daughter, and she's all sorts of different colors because we're doing Haunted Walk. I was like, she can see her blue.
Oh, that's right. Are you going to be scaring people again, Evie?
Yeah. This is Evil. So she'll be, that's why you can see she's kind of bluish and stuff because we were all painted up. We're going to be doing that again tonight. So
nice.
Having some Halloween fun, even though everything's like super crazy and there's war with Iran and. Okay, hold on. Let me finish, please. Thank you. I'm live online.
We're ending soon, Evie. All right. So this has been a Democrat and a Republican walk into a bar and our online version post hurricane. Obviously, Cindy has to go in and be a mother. Because unlike she is a child full cat lady, I think. Do you have cats?
Yes, I have cats and dogs and
child full cat lady. She is filled. She has a house filled with children, legitimately
filled with children and cats and all sorts of stuff.
Child full cat lady. All right. So this has been a Democrat and Republican Welcome to a Bar. I've been your Republican host, Sean Hartman.
Yes, and I'm your Democratic host, Dr. Cindy Banyai. And thanks so much for
There's Evie with the cat.
listening to us. We would love to have you subscribe. You can check out our plans and pricing page and keep us in business at bigmouthmediafl.com. And if you're listening to us online or on one of your favorite podcast channels, please do go ahead and like and subscribe to our shows there and leave a comment. It helps us reach more people. Thanks so much for joining, and we'll see you next time at a Democrat and Republican Walk into a Bar. Bye-bye.